number? Because that's staggering. Just how many organizations are from government are working with startups in Korea is what, 50 million people today, not quite?
So 390 government agencies.
390 government agencies for startups.
Right. You saw the statistics before, and I think the investment grade 48 billion. I think that's including all PE and everything. Pure venture capital funding is about 20 billion in Korea. Last year was the first year that monthly investment went over $1 billion per month of investment. So that's, given the size and scale of the economy and the number of entrepreneurs, that's telling something, and it's just growing.
Definitely telling something. And we as receivers, we've been here a long time, and I think probably around 10 years ago, we started seeing all of a sudden so many Korean startups coming here. We were wondering why and how, and now we know. So there is definitely a process to that, also for policymakers out here, and something we can discuss about. I want to do an exercise that we've done before, but all of you support startups, from your region to come here and pitch. We'd like you to do the same. We would like you to do the same as, why people here should care about Australia, Czech Republic, Europe, and Korea, and do it in a short period. So really, what is the unique value proposition that your region represents here? So who wants to start?
Small country, but I think per capita we're probably on par with you on the VC front. I think we passed 11 billion with about half the number of people. Yeah, I mean, there are general things that I could bore you with, like productivity and blah blah blah. But I think for this audience, the most relevant thing about Australia is that we're probably your #1 ally for the US in the world. We're in Five Eyes, we're in AUKUS, we're in Quad. And all that means that it's a very safe place to do business. You're not going to get in trouble doing business with Australia. And it's not politically sensitive. Both sides of Congress here and the executive, they all are behind Australia. So the US is Australia's biggest foreign direct investment partner, and I think second or third biggest export market. So our ties are really strong. We've fought beside the US in every war since World War I. Make of that what you will. But the point being that we have very, very close relationships, and I don't think you could find two countries with closer alignment when it comes to the US. So we are really, really well suited to solve the biggest problems that the US is facing in terms of security, climate change, and things like that. So I think the future is bright with the partnerships that we do have. And we have a really vibrant startup ecosystem where a small country in the corner of the globe, we're isolated, we have to be innovative, we have to make it on our own, and that comes through in our DNA, and then we can share that with the US.
Good, pretty clear, thank you.
Thank you. So for the Czech Republic, sorry.
Go ahead, talk about big countries first.
Definitely. So for us, our biggest strength for sure are the people. So the Czech Republic has a really long industrial tradition and history, and so also our education system is very focused on the technical training and the problem solving. So the Czech engineers are probably one of the best in the world, and if you compare it, or if you combine that also with our very convenient location, right in the heart of Europe, from Prague you can reach every major European city with under 2 hours of a flight, also very affordable cost of living and very high quality of life. That is a big draw for the international investment teams or international companies. They're coming in the Czech Republic, building their AI centers, bringing their knowledge there. We have very growing research and development segments, and also it translates to the number of the very technical startups that are coming out of our ecosystem.
I think mine is easier now. So what Anna said, times 27, right? So basically, if you're looking for the largest ecosystem on innovation and education in Europe, you're talking to us, AIT. And I want to just mention that one of our greatest value proposition is We were co-founded by EU. It means that EU invests a lot of money in us, but also part of what makes us very unique is we are all, majority of those KICs, that knowledge innovation communities, they're independent today. It means they don't necessarily need EU money to run their operations, which is a big plus. And that's one of my agenda in United States as well. We have another 2.5 years to go to become independent from the EU money. And that's why it's a little bit again complex, because I think that makes us more innovative in Europe, because we are not sitting for institutional money only. So we were actually going there as an organization to run our companies and create value and sell our products, basically. So we are not going to be a profitable organization, but our definitely value proposition is, I am running literally a startup here in Silicon Valley. This is how I feel like everything what I'm going to run is going to be generating revenue and not profit, but definitely revenue. So I think it's a very, when it comes to the institutions, like definitely we are very exceptional in that perspective. Yeah, hope I explained it good.
Peter, I should be able to run yours after all these years, but I want to hear your version first. Why? What has South Korea
Sure.
offer?
I can also give it in Korean if you want, but let's do English. Yeah. So it's very hard to generalize. So please get this with a grain of salt and pepper. But generally, I think there's two things really stand out, and this is kind of outgoing from our perspective. It's outbound or inbound from the Korea perspective. But I think there's two things. One is very non-quantitative statistics, which is it's very hip right now to do business in Korea as a hub into Asian market. And Tokyo had that about 20 years ago. Hong Kong had that 10 years ago. Because as you know, the Asian continent, unlike Europe, it's very capital based kind of economy. So you got Beijing, Shanghai, you got Tokyo, you got Singapore, you got Seoul. Right now, Seoul's cultural influence is so much that it covers the entire Asia plus more. So the hipness is there. If you started something in Korea and it's really interesting and the traction in Korea, you'll have no problem selling in Vietnam or Thailand. So that's one thing. The other one is, I think, is the people. If you think about it, a lot of economy or country and whatever entity you want to think about, when they hit the max or the climate or the top of the growth and then it stagnates, so is the vibrancy as well. So they become a little more relaxed like that. But Korean people, especially young people, they are fiercely competitive. So if you want to hire somebody, if you want to need some spark, if you want to bring a lot of different entities and perspective together, Korea can give you that, because they have combined the critical thinking with the market competitiveness. So that's, I think, Korea right now, maybe not in 10 years, but right now they're enjoying those great factors to seed something from Korea.
Well done. A much better version of mine. Mine actually would be very simplistic in a sense that we ran the last summit on the Scaleup Summit in Korea, and the big push that we had there, one of the reasons why we brought a bunch of also corporates, was really the acceleration of entities and companies around the metaverse. And it's pretty clear why the metaverse can actually take place there rather than in other places. A lot of creative content. You talk about the cultural, the K-pop and the likes. Access to speed connection, way better than Silicon Valley, honestly. So accessibility, definitely. And then a lot of sophistication into electronics, of consumer electronics, which is one of the key elements of why and when the metaverse startups will take off. And that's actually, we do have some of the metaverse startups out there. Awesome. Back to the data that we saw before. And again, we'd like also to show some about the increment. But let's play the game that you are the prime minister or the the person in charge, which you probably will in the future, in charge of the innovation agenda of your country. What do you think should be the right ingredients today to accelerate the throughput? So to see the numbers that we saw there before, but 10 times bigger in the next 5 to 10 years. What ideas would you have, or your policymakers there? Who wants to start?
It's going to take me a while to become prime minister.
I mean, I can start, that's fine. I think if I would run the agenda, I think me and you, we had that conversation a little bit, Marco. Definitely, I would put higher target on really, my focus is one thing here in the Valley. I want to have a lot of European unicorns. And that's going to be my focus because not only Europe needs them, the world needs them. And especially with the agenda what we have as EU that is fair and sustainable, I think the world is going to look up to us as an example as well. So as the EU, I take my job very serious, and that would be definitely putting more target and put all my resources to have more and more unicorns. Because that's what our impact is.
Yeah, which is, by the way, something that Korea has been doing for a long time. Like the target of unicorns as one of the macro objectives, where then the 300 plus agencies are after. David, the Prime Minister of Australia.
So Australia's done a really good job over the last number of decades with research and development. The government gives back research and development spend to the tune of 43 cents in the dollar for anyone who is doing R&D in Australia. So it's a really attractive place for corporates and startups to innovate and to build out. And that's led to things like Wi-Fi being invented in Australia. Google Maps was invented in Australia. And that's available for anyone to use if they're using Australian jobs to do that R&D. But there's not much good with this tech being developed in Australia if it can't be commercialized all around the world. So that's where our agency comes in, Austrade, helping taking these businesses global. But the R&D has been extended to software. That's been confirmed for a number of years now, which was always a big question mark. So it's great that software companies can use that as well as people building physical things. But more, I think more money on taking these businesses global into key markets like San Francisco, where we have presence in Europe and Asia and all over the world. But these key hubs of innovation where companies can and ideas can truly go global at an early stage is really, really key. And that's what our program does here, is bringing these products to market so they can commercialize in a big market like the US, because I think on every scale, the US is like 20x times the size of Australia. So it's really key that we get those ideas and founders out of Australia and into the big pond as soon as possible.
I agree. Australia, give more money to Australia. Yes. Yeah. Anna.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, speaking about what we should be doing, I think it's kind of, right there, like what I think we are lacking in the Czech Republic is a bit of a business mindset, and also the access to the foreign markets, and get access to the experience that we can then bring back and like replicate those experiences in the Czech ecosystem. So is it my turn also to say what we are actually doing, or it's just
Sure.
what, yeah? Because this is an exciting time for us. So we've been launching a really great initiative right now. One of them is we have just launched the biggest program for startup support that has ever been launched in the Czech Republic. And within the span of the 6 years, we are going to support over 300 startups with the business incubation services across different verticals that are going to be focusing on artificial intelligence, robotics, creative industries, math tech, and things like that. And to do that, we have partnered with our commercial partners, industrial partners, so the biggest companies in the Czech Republic. We also partnered with all the major universities in the Czech Republic. And also we involved all the different governmental agencies and also the innovation outposts within the Czech ecosystem in the region. So we are trying to connect the dots on all levels to kind of boost that ecosystem in the Czech Republic. But next year, we're also going to launch a program that is going to be more focused on the international experience, something that we've been doing since 2010. So we have the experience and we build up on that experience and we're creating something that is even more complex and flexible. So we're doing that as well. And last but not least, we are also trying to work with the ecosystem partners in the Czech Republic a little bit more, because we feel that they are the first point of contacts for a founder that wants to become a businessman. They go to the universities or their high school or those like innovation centers that are within those structures. And we feel like in order to build that ecosystem, in order to build that knowledge, within the founders, we also need to work with those first point of contact. So we want to bring them also here to Silicon Valley to give them the experience on how to work with those founders when they come to them. And so they can work with them from the very beginning with that global mindset. So yeah, this is what we're doing.
Peter, you're last in your pitching.
So yeah, I kind of resonate with what you've mentioned. They all are part of either the Korean government's aim, objective, or some of the players in the ecosystem's objective. But to be original to your question, if I were in a position to steer this energy, this passion, would be actually to understand and utilize technology, not just for one's gain, not just for a quick buck, but more responsible to the economy and the sustainability issues of the world. I think that's something, because all the good things I say about Korea, always think about there's always downside, which I don't explicitly say, but you can imagine with this thrust always comes a shadow that's not really intended effect. So a lot of Koreans, if they want technology to disrupt, to make money, to go outside, global, all that thing. But I also want to stress and steer a lot of wannabe founders and technologists to think a little bit bigger, not just yourself, not just your team, but as a global citizen, to utilize technology to places where technology is really needed, to enlighten people, to make a little more fair and make an impact, a positive impact to the global economy, not only economy, right? Because I've seen the last, I don't know how many years, but I've seen the big gap between the have and have not, so to speak, for the lack of the word. So technology can not only be used for your entrepreneurial use, but also for many different aspects. So maybe that's something I want to add to the good objective that I heard.
And I might maybe ask you a following question there, because I think the amount of work that has been done by government there in Korea is outstanding, and I think it stands out by by the definition of it. Is also complicated because of the delivery and the fact that you just mentioned a number of agencies. Just even to list it takes 5 pages. So I think maybe some coordination, some concentration of activities might also be helpful. A question there is that, to follow up on what you just mentioned, sometimes, and that's for all regions in general, startups tend to fit into what is the next big opportunity that is represented by public funding, which is the idea of public funding. You try to recreate that, but it comes with a cost. So sometimes, when the hype is all about AR and VR, everybody was doing something in animation turns to be AR, VR, but it's not really at the core of it. So how can those two objectives being reached at the same time while on one side, people are following the money, especially if it's free money, if it's a grant, while, maybe they should be able to look further to that. So how, I know it's a complicated question, but I wonder if it's something that, you have any suggestion also for the startups that are out here to be effective?
Right. I mean, both startups and government, from the get, they are very short-sighted. That's how it's just embedded in them, right? You have to be successful within 3 years, 5 years. Like in Korea, there's a rule where most of the government-supported grants or programs, you have to be 7 years or younger. I don't know who made that rule, but that's just how it is. It's the financial engineering part of it. You have to be 7 years or younger. If you're over 7 years, you're not considered as a government program, supportive company. So that, I don't know why, but both of them have one single goal, which is get rich very quick. So I think that goal needs to change depending on what you are actually doing. Some technology needs more time, some business needs more time, So I think that's probably the number one thing that needs to be a little bit changed, the way of thinking. Startup, short life, quick exit in 7 years, or you become a zombie, something like that. It's very simplistic, but I mean, I understand because Korea's startup ecosystem is way far younger than, it started in year 2000 basically, and then it had its own collapse, and then depending on the administration, and now we are looking at the second boom actually. So it's very young. I want to say about less than 300 venture capitalists in Korea, and the CVCs are gaining a lot of attraction, but most of them are kind of very short-sighted. They want something in return while they are in a decision role. So I think that needs to change first. Yeah, I'll start with that.
No, and that's a very important one. And in fact, for all the startups that we accelerate here, regardless of where they're from, we spend the first 10 days really working on how to make their market reference and their mission 10 times bigger than what is their current vision today. And just the exercise of it, I think it opens up to a myriad of opportunities that sometimes are just, because of being short-sighted and being pushed to the survival mode of the next few months. Here, I mean, we're lucky enough to live in an ecosystem where, in theory, capital is unlimited. So what if capital is unlimited? How would you reconsider your mission per se? And that exercise alone is unshackling a lot of new opportunities, which is basically the vision that can then click and being very effective, in particular with the investors, but not only with your partners or the people that you hire at the very beginning. All right, so thank you for that. Good potential political career there in development. Going back 2 steps backwards to your end of the year. What do you guys measure? What are your internal KPIs in terms of your entity here, both in inbound, if you are doing attraction, some of you do attraction of investments or talent to your region, and outbound, so the promotion of the best of from your region. Why don't you start, since you already have
Right. So I'll give you a very short answer. So my KPI is very simple. The investment account and the number of investment, the dollar investment, and the revenue growth in US is my KPI. So very straightforward. Very hard to do because I only introduce. I don't go into the negotiation meetings to do anything, but that's basically my KPI. But my KPI is also evolving at the same time, evolving in less simplistic number to more qualitative KPI. So we have more. I'm putting more indexes in terms of how the company is growing, because as the company grows in US, that's something that I love to do, I want to do. And
You want to track.
Right, track. Because like I said, everybody's so short-sighted because usually it's 3 years. In Korean, any post is 3 years basically, like high school. So you can't really achieve a lot, but I want to have a lot longer goal so that my KPI is how is the company meaningfully growing while they're in US, so that, I mean, you can't become, mostly you can't become a unicorn decathlon within 3 to 5 years. It takes more time. So that's my KPI. But thankfully, the new entrepreneurs from Korea, their mindset are much more flexible. They have much bigger vision, and the ecosystem is now much richer to support them. So that's something that works for me.
Do you have any KPI on inbound? It's not your organization.
Inbound meaning from US to Korea. I do have KPI, but that's it's a little bit, I don't know how to put it, but that's like dessert. It's not main food. So if I have that, great, but having great dessert doesn't make you full. It just, let's balance things out, kind of a policy. So inbound-wise, it's very hard. I mean, going to Korea, working with Koreans, we have a huge budget for one program. Korea Grand Startup Challenge. We give you office, we give you rent-free, we give you people for 6 months. It's incredible, and there has been success stories, but it's not like the mainstream. It's not the mainstream. Rather, I want to just say, inviting companies that are a certain size, that they want to grow their presence in Asia, that's something that having a hub in Korea and getting all those good grants from Korea might do very well. Not very early stage.
Got it. As a hub for Asia. Who wants to go next? I know, Samira, maybe it doesn't quite apply to you in the stage that you're at.
It depends. I mean, if you look at my KPI, I think I mentioned a little bit, my main objective is within 2 years become independent, that I don't need EU money, right? So I think that's my main objective. And if you look at the area where I am actually investing and what my KPI is, there are 3 areas: innovation, education, ecosystem. So I have on both sides. On an innovation, I'm developing programs for our more growth stage companies coming out of Europe. So it means they're already actually in a stage of, series, let's say D or E, right? And they come to United States just to expand their businesses. And that part, it needs a specific program. There are mature CEOs that they are not looking for those startup, programs. They are actually much more mature, and they actually need introductions to corporations, right? Really getting access. So that's one. That's what I saw that European countries, they're less active in that, and I could, as EU, just go and cover that part. And I'm also developing for next year program for the US companies, do the same, go to Europe, and we have a program for US companies that we can actually help them set up their organization and expand in the European market, because we are the largest ecosystem. There is no larger ecosystem than us, so why not use that also to serve US companies that they go from US to the Europe. So that's the second program, and then that's on innovation side. On education, we are, of course, we want as much talent as every country wants, right? So we are setting up in some of our top universities, like technical universities. We are very well connected, and we have some computer science programs, right? Master programs that we are going to promote actively in the United States. And we want, of course, talents from this country to go to Europe and also study, and hopefully maybe, it's a beautiful place, Europe. I mean, who doesn't want to be in Italy, Spain, or whatever, anywhere in Europe, right? And right, so they just can enjoy life and innovate and have their startup. So that's another focus of me. And ecosystem is something what I have been already starting doing, that bringing EU countries more working together and also connecting together, like to support each other here as a society, and see how we can help each other to serve our innovation agenda.
Very good. Anna, you want to share your KPIs?
Sure. So, I mean, as we are both FDI agency and innovation agency, we have both inbound and outbound. So for us, the inbound, that's kind of easy. We measure, I think, as everybody does, you know, the number of the jobs that are created, the total amount of the investment, and then like looking more specifically on the regional level on those like long-term statistics, or how does the unemployment change, how does the GDP grow, and things like that. When it comes to the outbound KPIs and impact, that's like for me, it's a bit harder to measure because I mean, you can of course look into the numbers, like how many startups you supported, how many startups you brought here, how much investment they raised, or how many, you know, how many of them like relocated or opened their office here, and those numbers are relevant. But I tend to prioritize the long-term focus, long-term impact more. And like, since we've been doing it 12 years, we can already see that that long-term impact is huge. It's just less tangible. You can't really measure that much. And like I already mentioned mindset before, and this is something that we can see as the impact, that the mindset is actually changing. And so Czech Republic traditionally is very risk-averse society. So if you fail your startup 10 years ago, the society would tell you, okay, no, you tried it, you're not good at it, go find yourself a job. And you would do that. But like now we see that much more startups, much more founders actually, you know, like they fail the startups and then they start again, like no matter what. And we see that out of those founders that are doing it, a lot of them are the founders that we have supported through our program. So I tend to look to our programs not strictly as a startup support programs, but also founder support programs, because startup fail, they do that. Like, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, but the knowledge and the experience stays with the founder, and then founder is going to go ahead and start a new startup, and he's going to use it no matter what. So this is kind of a long-term impact that we're seeing, but we don't know how to measure it, and that's important though.
David, is Australia more number-driven, Austrade in particular?
Yeah, we're getting more. So I think when we started, so the program I'm running here in San Francisco has been running for about 6 years. It started off being very much just the educational piece, the experience for the founders and those intangible things. More and more focusing on the harder numbers that have already been mentioned as well. So we measure export growth for these companies, whether it be a one-off deal that they've won or tracking their annual growth in annual sales each year. The outbound investment, so setting up a business here, hiring locals, anything that's going to lead to increased revenues back to Australia, and obviously jobs as well. On the inbound piece to Australia, especially for this market, as I said, US being Australia's biggest FDI partner, it's really the big ticket projects that we're measuring. We sort of tier them, tier 1, 2, and 3. So tier 1 would be Microsoft investing in quantum computing technologies in Australia, things like that. And that's all about, again, the amount of the investment and the jobs created. We have smaller ones as well around the edges. So if we're helping our companies get through a barrier to entry, it might be a license issue or an importing issue or whatever it is. We're breaking down those barriers. That's a mark as well. And then, if they're entering into agreements or partnerships, joint ventures that might lead to growth in the future, then that's also a bit of a mark.
Very good. Before we open with some questions, one of the things I would like you to chime in is in this world where everybody's bombarded here by come to ... to Montana, to Korea, to whatever, because there's a clear market of innovation today where even more with the flexibility post-pandemic, people are much more prone to have many more, options out there. And so how do you communicate the opportunity also for the entities that you're trying to attract into your programs? What suggestions you have? What are you using today, and what do you think they could use in the future? And obviously, this is a shameless plug to the platform that we provide that we're going to show in a minute. But I want to, pick your brain first on what is the status quo today, or how in that, in the 300 and plus agencies that are out there, how can you, attract the best startups applied to your programs, or out of the all the 1,000 entities that today are trying to attract capital, how would you, what is your marketing strategy there? If you have any specific insights, also the fact that, the insight is complicated because, we're not used to it, and the market is super noisy. Any ideas here?
For us, it's one of the main pieces is relying on trusted partners, in Australia to help us find those, and obviously the VC firms are one, our state governments are another, the incubators, the accelerators. We take their word pretty seriously in terms of what's coming out of Australia and which are the good companies to work with. I think the world is a smaller place now. Well, in a lot of people's minds, it's a smaller place than it was pre-pandemic, and there's a bit of a hesitancy to move or relocate around the world to chase certain opportunities. But I think still being here in market and experiencing the US is really, really key. So we're having a renewed sort of effort to try and get founders thinking about the US again and as a place to be for a good number of years, rather than just trying to do everything over Zoom. I mean, I was back in Australia a few months ago, and people would say, "Oh, we can do so much over Zoom," and I'm like, "No, you can only do so much over Zoom. You've got to get out of the country and into the new market if you want to chase it here." So it's about finding the companies at the right time as well. So when are they actually ready for a market or a geographic expansion, not just the US, but anyone. So when are they actually ready to take their business global, and we can just strike while that iron's hot.
Any other ideas? Anybody there?
I mean, for us, like marketing, our activities that we do here in Silicon Valley is kind of easy because, like, who doesn't want to come here? So it's harder. It's like, it's harder to actually pick the ones that are ready to come here for us. When it comes to the investment into the Czech Republic, that's a bit harder because, as you said, there's so much noise. But what works for us is being present in the tech conferences, having our national booth at the CES Las Vegas. We're going to be at the South by Southwest next year for the first time. I kind of like showcase the ecosystem through our startups and like start a conversation there. Like, showing people, hey, this is what we have and we have so much more. And it's easy. I see that as a, good start.
Which is what is happening, the TechCrunch Disrupt. So most of these conferences have become mostly a showcase of regions. The problem is that there's the whole world there. So, for me, it's playing Monopoly, and it's very hard to find areas where, what is there for me that is something that I really need. So I think that on one side is a great opportunity because everybody realized to the fact that, yes, there is an opportunity, and attracting capital and promoting innovation is probably the biggest driver for economical growth. But so are another 1,000 of countries and regions and cities around. And so we're kind of stuck into that, very noisy and very, high traffic flow.
So I think for me, Marco, because as I said, my objectives are to become independent, right, on revenue. It's so I got to run as an organization, not as an institution. There is the only way. So I have already started changing names with what I want to hire. I said I don't want ecosystem manager. I want PR and marketing manager. I don't want someone project manager for my innovation. I want a sales development rep. So I think I'm changing the jobs because I'm going to run organization that it's going to be revenue based. So that's going to be focus for me on hiring, and I hope I can get shift in that, right? So that I can run more in company than more in institution. So we're going to have really focus on selling, and it's maybe weird for an institution, but that's what I am hoping to do. So I am going to hire marketing and PR. I have right now actually someone who's is a contractor, but it's helping me already to set up that.
That's a good point. How many of you actually spending money in digital marketing? I don't think I know any government organization that today is putting any chip in digital marketing, which is at the end of the day, the way that the market of a company startups would do.
Exactly.
So that's definitely a learning curve as well there. I'm not saying that I would be effective, but
right.
I think we need to be a little bit more creative.
More creative, that's right.
Of promoting. So
yeah.
At the end of the day, it's yet another product.
And I also would not own respect from the startups. My own sister is a founder of AI organization. So they would respect you also, even if you're a organization as a EU, that when they see that you're actually like a business, running a business, right? Not based on an institutional money, because the founders, they look at it in a different way. They want to learn more, right?
Yeah, I want to resonate what my colleagues were saying, David and Samira was saying. There's too many companies coming, but my challenge is including the online marketing, digital marketing. My challenge is, how can I make my programs and my people able to customize how they support each companies? Because every single company has very unique their issues or challenges or objectives. So how do we, with a given amount of time, resource, and personnel, how can we customize so that, because let me track back and go to the outcome. There are three outcomes when Korean companies come here. There are three outcomes. One is obvious outcome, which is they come here, they kind of test the waters, and they, for some reason, their effort and their luck, they find somebody, they find one customer, they find a reference, and they stay here. That's one good example. The second example is the opposite. They come here with a high ambition, with a kind of, I'm going to the end of the rainbow to get my potluck. And they come here and, where's everybody? Peter, where's everybody? Where can I meet everybody? I don't know where people are. Well, you're looking at the wrong place. So that's and then they try times and they know, oh, this must be a mirage. So they go back empty-handed. And then there's a third outcome, which is they come here, they learn stuff, they try to meet their customer, they try to make a reference, but they fail. But in the process, they go back with a tool set, a mindset, a set of attitude that they can apply in Korean market or other Asia market. So it's not a fail. It's a fail that they didn't succeed in US, but through that process, they learned so much. They learned the jargons, they learned how to use the LinkedIn, for instance. They learn a lot of those things and apply that with an authority in another market. So I'm like, after a couple of years, I look at the company, wow, you said you're never going to set a foot in US. And he said, yeah, that's right, because I succeeded in Southeast Asia market, right? So given those three outputs, I want number one and number three to become bigger and bigger. And in order to do that, the requirements are becoming more and more company-specific support. And having said that, don't get me wrong, out of 100 companies, 80 companies come and email me, can you introduce somebody in Google? I'm like, Google? There's so many people in Google and department. You can't just ask me like that, which tells me that they are not ready. So 80% is like that, but the other 20% who are ready, who speak business language, we want to focus on them, and every one of them, to give them the right push to the right direction.
Good. And then in a few minutes, I want to show how we think our AI can help in some of this customization of trying to suggest what is the right opportunity that is out there. But before going there and before concluding, I think we have a few minutes for a few questions. We also have a few regions here. You might want to turn it on.
I have work. Hi everyone. I've just a question for the panel. Back to the measurement KPI metrics. We are talking about a new way of doing our sub-metrics, particular for social and environmental aspects. This is very important for us. I'm adding the corporate accelerator for any. As we are an equity-free program, we do not have actually a ROI system to measure our startups. So we are studying several metrics in order to calculate a sustainable return on investment. So, because this is very important for 2050 objectives, 55 for 55 agenda, etc. I was wondering if you have put in place a system to measure, in particular, environmental impacts of the startups in terms of CO2 emission avoided, or I don't know, raw materials fully recovered, etc. Thank you.
Good question. I don't know if that's the case for any of you. Does any of you actually have some of these measurements as part of your program? I know it's complicated.
We don't have that. It's very hard to do that. But just to just give you a very rudimentary answer is we used to count the MOUs, the agreement, POCs, how many POCs they did. We can't kind of follow up if that amounted to something down the road, but that's kind of a initial kind of a count, objective count of what we've done. So that's as far as our KPI go. We don't go deep into, okay, after 2 years of business activity, what kind of a footprint have you made? It's very, very hard to do. And for us, we don't just ask. We actually require a document that some sort, they can redact all the names, but we do request documents that shows, okay, you have 3 MOUs, 5 POCs, or whatever. So that's as far as, yeah, KIC goes.
I mean, EU generally has some agenda on that, right? So I think, gentlemen, I don't know where you're from, but Italy, yes. So, I mean, EU has that agenda. So I don't have a hard KPI on that, but I work very closely, right, as EIT also with climate and all those kicks. But myself, because of the values that I represent, right, so it's right, when founders come right now, I'm helping a Danish founder with literally everything. So when they are in that space, sustainability, and they're having a large impact, I think the Valley is a good place. Generally, people would just help you because there are many people that they have that mindset and they want to. It's the same with the vegan and sustainable food sourcing. There is actually, I know a large investors society just in the Valley, all Americans, that they back up every founder that comes in that segment because they're against animal rights, so eating animal. So it's you see that communities are just created in a Valley as well, and I'm sure in Europe as well, but it's definitely, there is a system, ecosystem that people back them up, so because there are values that matters a lot, especially in California.
We're not tracking the KPIs either, but we also don't track the number of female founders in our program, but it's very much in the front of our mind, or LGBT founders or people of color. So I think it comes down to what you're doing to attract these companies in. Like we have 20 climate tech companies coming next week for Verge down in San Jose. So we're not yet measuring the KPIs, but it's all about the funnel, like leaning into those areas. We have a new government now in Australia. It came in 6 months ago. They're pushing climate, up the agenda more so than previously. So I think it will move that direction. It'll be really interesting to see if that comes up as a part of our global metrics. It's a really interesting question.
All right, I think we're out of time now. We need to move on to the next panel. So thanks to everybody here.